beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Good Vibration Station. For those that haven't tuned in before, my name is Myla. I'm your agony aunt. I'm here to encourage you to find that light in the tunnel after heartbreak. Okay, so we are going to carry on a little bit on this road less travel, which the last time we talked about losing a husband through an affair and the consequences of making choices along your road less traveled. Okay, so what now, as I talked about your husband having the affair and what terrible consequences that could have, but what if you or the other woman or the other man? So yes, I've been there. I met one of my old friends, one of my dear friends in primary school. I met her brother years and years and years later. He came into the business where I was working, and I was so happy to see him, and unfortunately gave me bad news because my friend passed away in a car accident a few years before that. But at that stage he left his wife. He wasn't living with her. He was living in the town where I was staying. Anyways, so he had 2 children with this woman. They were married for many years, but they were then separated. He was living with somebody that I also grew up with, so I knew that it was really like that. But anyways, so we started talking, and we went for coffee, and we went for a drink, and you know, I just like fell in love head over heels. That was about approximately 2 years after my first husband passed away. I definitely did not look for a husband. I went through all these bad experiences, so I definitely didn't want a husband. I never ever thought that I will fall in love ever again. It definitely wasn't part of my life plans. I become a spinster after that. You know, I just wasn't interested. But anyways, this just happened, and I really fell in love. In the meantime, I opened up my own business, and everything was moving well, bought a house, and I was on my own mission. He came to me with this, but now he wasn't divorced from his first wife yet. He was never there, around there, which should have been a red flag, but you don't want to go there. He always said he's going to drive to that town, which was about 3 hours, 2.5 hours away. So he used to drive there over weekends and then stay with his kids. I had children and I had a job that kept me busy over weekends, so it didn't bother me, you know. So I knew he's got to spend time with his children, and it's very important, you know. So I never ever got suspicious about him still having a relationship with her. Well, definitely not physically. He came to me with this proposal that he got a job even further away, but really for a while. I think it's something like 5 hours away from where we were living at the moment, where I was stationed. And I just said to him, I can't leave everything. I just open a business, you know, I've got a house, you know, I've got responsibilities in my children's school. I can't just pack up everything and leave. I just can't do it. And lo and behold, a week later, I got the call from him. He visited me and he said to me, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to my wife. She's going to move with me. I was heartbroken. So the lesson that I want to leave you with that, I decided to still have this relationship with this man, although I knew there wasn't any paperwork. Not that it would have made a difference, but there was no paper. I knew he was still married. And I still went down the road less traveled. I still took it, you know, and I still ran with it. And I was just head over heels. So it was just like, okay, you can't go, so I've got a quick replacement for you, you know, you're not that special. So yes, I want to just tell everybody, also don't always blame the other person. And we're going to get to that one. But that's choosing that, you know, you're playing with fire and you still freaking play with the fire. So please don't go there. If the guy's still married, it doesn't matter what, and if he is never with, or he's with you during the week, but he's with his children over weekends, but there's never, you know, I did see signs because it was like over weekends I was never contacted. Okay, there was no cell phones at that stage, but I mean, I had landlines, so he could definitely phone me. But yeah, over weekends he was as quiet as a little mouse. You know, during the week he was there. So yeah, I just want to warn people, men and women. So if something is off and something is fishy, please just don't go there. Just stay away. Okay, so the next scenario is when you choose, when you fall in love before you even know that that person's, in my case, I met a guy that was engaged, extremely charming person, and I was actually taken immediately. You know, I was just taken with him, just the personality, and the personality was completely different to my late husband's, which was attractive to me in the sense they looked a lot alike. They were the same type of person, but the personalities he was like outgoing and, you know, temperamental and emotional, where my late husband was different. He was like a deep soul, you know. That was more of an introvert, where this was more of an extrovert. So I was going, oh, it's so nice to be with somebody that's an extrovert. So, and we loved dancing, and my late husband never liked dancing, you know. So I was completely taken by this guy, and it happened quick. And I also wasn't looking for somebody. I didn't want somebody. So he moved to the town. He was new. You could immediately, because this was also a smallish town, which turned into a city later on. But it was a smallish town at that stage, and everybody knew everybody. And the minute that he walked in there, I knew that this was a face we've never seen before. And it was just, I was always excited to see him, you know. I couldn't wait for him just to walk in there again at my work at the restaurant. I was so excited for him just to get there, you know. So I kind of fell in love almost before I knew who he really was. Okay, at that stage, I think I was about 30, 31. Right. Yeah, so we started this relationship, and a few weeks along the line, I heard that he was still engaged, and that the place that he lived, this woman is going to move to the town where we live. I was devastated. But you know what? As a youngster, you think, you know, you want to fight for what you need. This person's not married, so I'm going to fight for what I want. You know, you go there. So you're a bit selfish. But anyways, but eventually he wasn't engaged anymore. And we were together. But, this guy was emotional. It was ups and downs. Emotional in a very bad way. You know, it was like, then he was on a high and then he was on a low, like very extroverted, and then he was crying and then he was laughing, you know. So it was kind of also a bit difficult to, you know, to know what's going on with him emotionally, which was terrible for me because I'm a person that, you know, I'm very mellow, and most days I'm the same. I'm in the same kind of mood, and I'm calm. So yeah, a year or so later, somebody warned me. One of his friends actually warned me, and I've phoned his ex and realized that he's still seeing his ex on the side. But then me and her decided, okay, you know, we're going to be kind of civil about this. I mean, at one stage, I literally took him away from her, so, you know, and she's just taking back what belonged to her. But then we started comparing notes. It was so scary because then we realized, but he's got more than 2 women that he drags along. So yeah, guys and girls, watch out, because your exes might compare notes. And it's really scary when that happens, because you can't get away with this. Okay, so somewhere along the line, the truth is going to come out. So please, okay, so that means that if you get involved with somebody that's already involved with somebody else, please don't, you know. I'm saying this, you know, I know you're probably going to take your chances like I did, but yeah, please don't. Because even if you say to yourself, you know, I can remember saying to myself as a very immature person, I used to say to myself, you know what, it's not that bad. He wasn't married to her, and I didn't know immediately that he was. And then I decided I'm going to fight for him. I was selfish, you know. So, but yeah, it was like, cut your nose to spite your face or something like that. I don't even know what that is. But yeah, so please don't go there. So yeah, it can happen in life. We are all human. That you are that other woman or that other person, that the other person in that person's life. But you know what? If you cannot be the number one person in somebody else's life, just get away. Just get out of there, because it's not worth it. It's not worth it to waste your time, even if it's just a year or 6 months. It's too much. Life is too precious to waste it on someone that doesn't value you, or even value his ex for that matter, or her ex for that matter. So guys, I'm going to leave you with that. And yes, every relationship that breaks, doesn't matter if you're married or not, it's difficult to get through that. You are heartbroken every time something like that happens. But eventually, you've got to choose yourself. Choose yourself, and everything would be okay. And I'm not saying choose yourself. I'm not talking about like I did, chose myself when I found out he was engaged, and I still went for it. You know, don't do it, because that's got consequences in itself, and that consequences might only be your own heartbreak. But you know what? That's unnecessary. It's unnecessary shit that you're putting yourself through. So why go there if you don't have to? So if you're on that road less traveled, and you get to that road where you've got to choose yay or nay for this, say no. Please don't go there.